Okay, so today, just for the video, we have collected all the data. We asked about 488 people their guess on the way to the rock. We've recorded those. Not only that, but we've also recorded their age, their grade, gender, and whether they actually touched the rock before they actually made their guesses. So we have a lot of factors that we can look at, and this is a very unique data set. So our goal here is, how do we express this visually so that somebody could walk up to this poster that we're going to make, and we're going to make a poster that they can see a graph of some of these effects and go, oh, I get it. Oh, of course this happened. Or, oh yeah, I see the age effect. So that's kind of what we're going to do today. And so we're going to play around with these graphing. I'm going to show you one trick that I was kind of playing with the data a couple days ago, and I kind of discovered this way to display it that I think is really interesting. Okay, so everybody should have 488 rows. Is that correct? Yes. Okay, good. All right. What we're going to do is we're going to go to Graph. Let's go to Graph Builder. Okay, everybody has that? Yes, please. Go ahead. I'm strapped in. Yes, much better. Okay. So usually when you're doing these graphs, and I'm going to tell you this right now, is that the continuous variable, that means, things that aren't categories, that kind of, have a continuous, distribution, usually go on the y-axis. What should we put on the y-axis in this case? Which one of these categories? The guesses, but which one? What do you think would be the most informative? Ooh, absolute difference might be a good one as well. I think for this, the way this is going to work, let's try predicted minus actual. I think that's a good one to start with. But I like the way you're thinking. Yeah, absolutely. We can definitely maybe look at that one as well. Okay, everybody do that? Okay. Here is where it's going to get interesting. So on this x-axis, now we've got everybody's guesses. What kind of categories, do we want to put on the x-axis? Give me one. What's that? Mo, you're a rock star today. Wherever you went, like when you were gone, it worked out well. Yes, that's exactly what we do. So let's do that. Let's take tactile contact. Okay. Now let's take a look at this. So this is just tactile contact. Do you notice any real difference here? Like those that touched it actually is a pretty high kind of bar here. And it almost looks like there's no advantage to touching it. It almost seems like a disadvantage. But again, as Mo said, we also have another effect. And we talked about that, right? That maybe the men who touched it, or the older males that touched it, had a better guess because they could lift it. And maybe the females didn't. So let's take a look at that. So I'm going to take gender here. So everybody see gender? Let's throw that underneath here. Okay, everybody did that? So now we have two effects here. You can see here are the females' guesses. Did they touch it or did they? So no, yes. And then we've got our males here. Okay. Now this is black and white and it doesn't look very pretty and it doesn't really tell us much. So here's what we're going to do. What is a good thing to throw on there to kind of divide this up? Color, yeah, totally. But like what category? No, we already got gender. So what we're going to do is we're going to see all those dots. They're all colored the same. We want to color them based on some kind of age would be hard because there's so many categories. The nice thing about using grade, so let's do that. So here's what you do is you take grade. I discovered this, like I said, a couple days ago. I was like, oh man, this is awesome. So let's go overlay. Okay, did everybody do that? Okay. Now they're kind of colored, but it doesn't really look very pretty, right? You can't really tell much. Here is what I discovered, is what we can do is we can basically draw a curve for the best fit through these data points based on the grade. So here's what we're going to do is we're going to click on this box here. How cool is that? I guess I was more impressed than you guys were. But let's take a look at this right now. Okay? There is a lot of things to digest with this kind of plot, and that's why I like it so much. Let's look at females for a minute. Let's look at the effect of age. Okay? Is the accuracy of their guesses getting better the farther down we go? Yeah, totally. Even with the females, right? And this kind of holds up. Look at the teachers. The teachers are actually right around this 0. And 0 is a perfect guess. Okay? So there is an age effect. But here is the interesting thing. Is that, so here, yeah, 7th, here's 8th. 11th grade is just weird. I don't know what's up with those guys. And then you've got, you can tell them I told them that. I'm going to see him in the spring anyway. 9, what one was this? 10, there wasn't really much of an effect here. And then you look at the teachers. So here's the categories where they didn't touch it, where they touched it. What happened to the females' guesses when they touched it in most of the groups? What's that? They guessed higher, didn't they? Which is bad in this instance because it makes them less accurate. Some of these are very pronounced. If you actually look at the 8th grade and the 11th grade, I mean, there's a huge effect of them touching it. And them touching it is not a good thing. The 7th grade, yeah, that's what's kind of crazy about this. 7th grade, the girls who touched it were probably a little more accurate. And then we get to the men, and then those that touched it are just completely way off. You know? It was like these 7th graders tried to like show how tough they are, and they probably tried to lift it, and because they couldn't lift it, they said, oh, that's probably 1,000,000 pounds. You know? But what's funny, too, is if you look at these other curves, there really isn't much in effect whether they touched it or not. And even though those medians are very different between tactile versus non-tactile, I don't think there's much in effect. And if there is an effect, I think it's an adverse effect, especially when you look at the females. Is everybody seeing that as well? If you don't understand this, let me know now. And even with the teachers, I mean, you look at the most accurate guesses here, and I think that's why this teacher line is really interesting, is you can see a slight effect with the females if they touched it. But then if you look at the males, whether they touched it or not, it doesn't really make a big difference at all. And most of these curves, except this one here, who is this? 11th grade. Psh. Disregarding the 11th grade, there isn't much in effect except when you get to the 7th grade. You know? And we can make kind of all kinds of interesting, observations about that. Maybe there was a batch effect here. That remember that if you ask people their guesses in the presence of other people, they get influenced by them. It is completely possible that when we ask this question, maybe there was one kid that just kind of all of a sudden made this huge high guess, and maybe all the other kids followed him. I don't know. But this is exactly what you want to do with data. We can look at this. We've got 488 bits of information, and we just summarized it in a method that we can kind of look at and make sense of. And that's exactly the point of this, this exercise. How do I take all this information and make a story that makes sense? Here's what you can also do. So let's put in see this caption box up here? Do you guys have that one? It says caption box. It's this little box thing. Let's hit that. Cool, huh? So now it's giving you all the means. Actually, you know what? Let's change that to medians. So here, median. There we go. So you can see the teachers were only off by 2. But you can definitely see this effect here. 7th grade, 150. 8th grade, 72, 59, 69. And then we go back to 72. And then we're going down to 52. But there's a huge difference between the students and the teachers as well. What is that? That's where the science begins, really. It's, okay, we definitely have an age effect. Why? And if we were going to keep going with this, we would probably explore that a little more. Start playing with the student thing. Maybe if they didn't have to guess in front of all the other students, because you notice that when we asked the teachers, they were usually kind of by themselves a little bit. Maybe they're not as influenced by what other people guessed. And they were very competitive for sure. They're still asking me how close they were. But I think this is exactly what we want to do. So let's keep this. I'm going to show you how to save these files, so that way you don't have to send me the whole thing.